The sun was setting in the vast expanse of the Arizona desert, painting the sky with hues of orange and red that stretched endlessly over the horizon. The air carried a dry heat that clung to every breath, making it difficult for anyone to endure the relentless march across this unforgiving land. In the distance, a lone figure rode on horseback, his silhouette stark against the fiery backdrop. His name was Samuel Harper, a man whose life had been shaped by both hardship and determination. Samuel's journey began days ago when he left his small ranch near Flagstaff, seeking supplies for the coming winter. But as fate would have it, something unforeseen awaited him along the way, a mystery that would test not only his courage but also his understanding of what truly lay beneath the surface of the Wild West. It started innocently enough. Samuel needed water for himself and his trusty steed, Thunder. They had traveled far from any known source, their canteens nearly empty. A faint trail led them toward an old abandoned well hidden among rocky outcrops and scattered mesquite bushes. As they approached, Samuel dismounted, his boots crunching softly against the parched earth. He examined the well carefully, its wooden structure weathered by time and neglect. Little did he know, this simple stop would unravel secrets buried deeper than the well itself. Thunder stood quietly beside him, ears twitching at every sound. The rustling leaves, distant coyotes calling to each other under the growing darkness. Yet there was something unusual about the horse today. He seemed restless, almost anxious. Samuel patted his neck reassuringly before lowering the bucket into the depths of the well. When it came back up, the liquid inside shimmered oddly under the fading sunlight. It looked like water, but something fell off. "Come now, boy," Samuel murmured, holding out the bucket toward Thunder. "You must be thirsty." But Thunder refused. His nostrils flared, and he stepped back sharply, snorting loudly. This behavior puzzled Samuel. Never before had Thunder rejected water so adamantly. Determined to understand, Samuel decided to taste it himself. Just one sip, he tipped the bucket slightly, letting the cool liquid touch his lips. And then everything changed. Night fell swiftly over the desert, stars twinkling brightly above as if mocking the events unfolding below. Samuel sat huddled near a small fire, his mind racing with questions. That single sip of the strange liquid had caused a tingling sensation throughout his body, unlike anything he'd ever experienced. At first, it felt invigorating, almost magical, filling him with unexpected energy. But soon, unease crept in. There was something unnatural about it, something sinister lurking behind its deceptive appearance. Thunder remained close, still refusing to drink from the well. Instead, he kept watch, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. Samuel could sense the animal's instinct screaming louder than words ever could. What was this mysterious substance? Why did it affect them so profoundly? As hours passed, Samuel found himself unable to sleep, haunted by visions of shadows moving just beyond sight, whispers carried by the wind. The world around him seemed alive with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Finally, driven by desperation and curiosity, he made a decision. He would explore further, delving deeper into the mystery surrounding this place. With dawn breaking once more, Samuel packed his belongings and set out eastward, following another faint trail marked by peculiar symbols carved into nearby rocks. These markings were unfamiliar, ancient perhaps, suggesting a history long forgotten. Along the way, he encountered signs of previous travelers, broken wagons, discarded tools, even remnants of campfires, but no living soul. Each clue added layers to the puzzle, yet answers remained frustratingly out of reach. By midday, they reached a clearing surrounded by towering cottonwood trees, their branches swaying gently despite the absence of wind. Here, nestled between roots exposed like gnarled fingers reaching skyward, lay a spring bubbling steadily forth. Unlike the well, this water appeared pure and refreshing, glistening invitingly under the sun's rays. Without hesitation, Samuel filled his canteen and offered some to Thunder. This time, the horse drank eagerly, finally quenching his thirst. Relieved though they were, neither man nor beast lingered long. An ominous atmosphere hung heavy over the area, pressing down upon their shoulders. Birds sang less frequently here, replaced instead by eerie silences punctuated occasionally by distant howls. Something watched them, unseen but present, stirring unease within their hearts. Days turned into weeks as Samuel continued his quest, guided now not merely by need for survival, but by fascination bordering obsession. He learned of legends whispered among settlers and native tribes alike, tales of enchanted springs capable of granting extraordinary powers, or curses depending on one's intentions. Could such stories hold truth? Or were they merely fabrications meant to explain phenomena too strange to comprehend? One evening, while camping alongside a narrow river winding through dense forest, Samuel encountered an elderly woman tending her goats. Her face bore countless lines etched deep by years spent battling nature's elements. She introduced herself simply as Eleanor, though her sharp gaze suggested wisdom far exceeding her years. "You seek knowledge," she stated matter-of-factly after listening patiently to Samuel's tale. "But beware, young man, for knowledge comes at a price." Eleanor explained how certain places held energies tied directly to Earth's core, influencing all who ventured near. Some benefited greatly, gaining strength or insight previously unattainable. Others suffered dire consequences, losing themselves entirely to forces beyond comprehension. She warned Samuel strongly against tampering with things best left undisturbed. Yet warnings often fall on deaf ears when curiosity burns bright. Ignoring Eleanor's advice, Samuel pressed onward until finally reaching a secluded valley shrouded perpetually in mist. Within stood an enormous stone monolith engraved with intricate patterns, resembling those seen earlier during his travels. Around its base pooled clear water, glowing faintly blue-green, emanating warmth even amidst the chill air. Here, Samuel realized the truth behind the water from the well. It wasn't water at all, but rather essence drawn directly from this sacred site. Whoever, or whatever, had accessed it before him had corrupted its purity, turning it into something dangerous and unpredictable. Now, standing before the source, Samuel faced a choice greater than any he'd made before. Would he take from the monolith, risking unknown repercussions, or leave it untouched, preserving its sanctity for future generations? His hand hovered above the glowing pool, trembling slightly. Memories flooded his mind, his family back home, their hopes pinned onto a safe return. Thunder's unwavering loyalty despite the trials endured together, Eleanor's earnest plea echoing in his ears. With great effort, Samuel withdrew his hand, bowing his head in silent respect. Turning away, he allowed the mist to swallow him whole as he retraced his steps back toward civilization. Behind him, the monolith pulsed once, then stilled, acknowledging his decision. Weeks later, Samuel returned to his ranch, carrying with him lessons invaluable yet burdensome. Though physically unchanged, internally he bore scars invisible to others, reminders of choices made and truths confronted. Life resumed its steady rhythm. Yet always present remained awareness of worlds existing parallel to our own, hidden just beneath everyday reality. And whenever someone asked why Thunder never drank from unfamiliar sources again, Samuel smiled knowingly, choosing never to reveal the full extent of his adventure. For some mysteries, after all, are best left untold. Samuel's journey did not end with his return to the ranch. Instead, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one filled with cautionary tales and whisper warnings shared around campfires late into the night. The events he had witnessed, the choices he had made, lingered like shadows cast by an eternal flame, reminding him that the Wild West was more than just untamed lands and rugged frontiersmen. It was a place where secrets slumbered beneath every rock, behind every tree, and within every drop of water. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of crimson and gold, Samuel sat on his porch, carving a piece of wood with steady hands. Thunder grazed nearby, his ears occasionally twitching at sounds only horses could hear. The air carried the scent of pine from the distant forest and the faint aroma of rain approaching from the west. It was during these quiet moments that Samuel often reflected on what had transpired during his encounter with the mysterious well and the glowing spring. Little did they know, however, that their peace would soon be shattered once again. The first sign came one morning when Samuel noticed something peculiar about the animals near the creek that bordered his property. Deer, usually skittish but predictable in their habits, were acting strangely, darting erratically through the underbrush, their eyes wide with fear. Birds no longer sang their usual melodies. Instead, the forest seemed eerily silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves moved by unseen forces. Concerned, Samuel mounted Thunder and rode toward the source of the disturbance. As they approached the creek, he observed an unsettling phenomenon. The water appeared darker than usual, almost black, and its surface rippled unnaturally, as though alive. Fish floated belly up, their scales dull and lifeless. Something was wrong here, and Samuel felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He dismounted and knelt beside the creek, dipping his fingers cautiously into the water. It felt colder than it should have been, even for early autumn. Pulling his hand back quickly, he wiped it on his trousers, his brow furrowing in thought. This wasn't natural. Whatever force had corrupted the well weeks ago might now be spreading, poisoning everything in its path. Thunder whinnied softly, his body tense. Samuel glanced up, following the direction of the horse's gaze, and saw movement deeper in the woods. Shadows shifted where there should have been none, shapes forming briefly before dissolving into the gloom. His instinct screamed at him to leave, but curiosity, and perhaps a touch of recklessness, kept him rooted to the spot. "Who's there?" Samuel called out, his voice firm despite the unease creeping into his chest. No answer came, but the shadows continued to writhe and twist, as if mocking him. Then, without warning, a low growl echoed to the clearing, followed by the sound of snapping branches. From the depths of the forest emerged a creature unlike anything Samuel had ever seen. Its form was vaguely canine, yet twisted and malformed, its fur matted and dripping with moisture. Eyes glowed red in the dim light, and fangs glistened menacingly as it snarled, baring its teeth. Samuel's heart pounded in his chest as he reached instinctively for the revolver holstered at his side. But before he could draw it, Thunder reacted, rearing up and letting out a thunderous neigh that shook the very ground beneath them. The creature hesitated, its head tilting slightly as if confused or intimidated by the horse's display of courage. Seizing the opportunity, Samuel swung himself onto Thunder's back and urged the horse forward. With surprising speed and agility, Thunder charged past the creature, which lunged futilely after them, its claws scraping against dirt and stone. Once clear of the immediate danger, Samuel guided Thunder into a gallop, heading back toward the safety of the ranch. Back home, Samuel spent the rest of the day fortifying his property, barricading doors and windows, lighting lamps to ward off the encroaching darkness. He knew the creature, or whatever it represented, wouldn't simply disappear. The corruption spreading to the land demanded attention, and Samuel realized he couldn't ignore it any longer. That night, as the stars twinkled above and crickets chirped their nocturnal symphony, Samuel sat by the fire, lost in thought. Thunder stood nearby, his presence comforting despite the circumstances. The old woman Eleanor's words returned to him, resonating louder than ever. Asterisk, beware, young man, for knowledge comes a price. Asterisk, if Samuel was to confront this growing threat, he needed allies. Alone, he was but a single man against forces he barely understood. So, with dawn breaking over the horizon, he set out once more, determined to seek answers, and perhaps redemption, from those who might still remember the ancient truths buried deep within the heart of the Wild West. His journey led him to a small mining town nestled in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Dusty streets lined with wooden buildings greeted him, the air thick with the smell of sweat and coal smoke. Miners shuffled about, their faces grimy and weary, while saloon girls leaned lazily against doorframes, offering smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Here, amidst the chaos and despair, Samuel hoped to find someone willing to listen and help. It wasn't long before he encountered Jacob Reese, a grizzled prospector whose reputation preceded him. Known for his uncanny ability to uncover hidden treasures, both literal and metaphorical, Jacob was rumored to possess knowledge of the land's secrets, passed down through generations of his family. Samuel found him sitting alone outside a dilapidated cabin, polishing a rifle with meticulous care. "Jacob Reese," Samuel asked, approaching cautiously. The man looked up, squinting against the sunlight. "That's me," he replied gruffly. "What do you want?" Without hesitation, Samuel recounted his experiences: the well, the glowing spring, the corrupted creek, and finally, the monstrous creature. To his surprise, Jacob listened intently, his weathered face betraying neither disbelief nor fear. "I've heard tell of such things," Jacob admitted when Samuel finished speaking. "There are places, forces, that shouldn't be meddled with. Some call it magic, others curse. Either way, it ain't nothing good. So, what can we do?" Samuel pressed, leaning forward eagerly. Jacob sighed, setting aside his rifle. First, we need to understand what we're dealing with. That means going back to the source, to wherever this corruption began. And second, we'll need help. Not everyone's going to believe us, but there are those out here who know the truth. With Jacob's guidance, Samuel assembled a small group of individuals united by their belief in the supernatural elements woven throughout the fabric of the Wild West. Among them was Maria Alvarez, a healer skilled in herbal remedies and ancient rituals. Thomas Whitaker, a former soldier-turned-wanderer whose sharp instincts often saved lives. And Emily Carter, a young woman whose connection to nature allowed her to sense disturbances in the environment long before others noticed them. Together, they prepared to journey ahead, gathering supplies and weapons both mundane and mystical. Each member brought unique skills to the table, but all shared a common goal: to stop the spreading corruption before it consumed everything they held dear. Their trek took them across treacherous terrain, testing their resolve and pushing them to their limits. Along the way, they faced challenges that tested not only their physical endurance, but also their emotional strength. One particularly harrowing encounter occurred when they stumbled upon a ghost town abandoned years earlier due to unknown horrors lurking in the surrounding hills. The air hung heavy with sorrow, and whispers carried on the wind spoke of betrayal and loss. It was here that Emily revealed a secret she had kept hidden until now. She believed herself to be the key to unlocking the mystery of the corruption. Her dreams had been plagued by visions of a great serpent coiled around the earth, its scales shimmering with the same unnatural glow Samuel had seen in the spring. She feared that somehow she was connected to the entity responsible for the chaos unfolding around them. Despite her doubts, the group rallied around her, vowing to protect her at all costs. Together, they pressed onward, driven by hope and determination. Finally, they reached the valley where the monolith stood, its surface now marred by cracks and fissures, evidence of the strain placed upon it by the spreading corruption. The glowing pool beneath it churned violently, spewing forth dark tendrils that writhed like living serpents. At its center hovered the creature Samuel had encountered earlier, now grown larger and more formidable, its body pulsing with malevolent energy. As the battle commenced, each member of the group played a crucial role. Jacob's precise shots kept the creature at bay, while Maria chanted incantations designed to weaken its defenses. Thomas fought valiantly alongside Samuel, wielding a blade forged from materials blessed by Native American shamans. And Emily, standing near the monolith, reached deep within herself, channeling her connection to the land in an attempt to sever the link between the entity and its earthly anchor. The fight was fierce and unrelenting, costing them dearly. Wounds were inflicted, both physical and emotional, but ultimately, their combined efforts proved successful. With a final cry, Emily unleashed a surge of pure energy, shattering the monolith and banishing the creature back to whatever realm it had come from. In the aftermath, as the valley returned to its former tranquility, the group gathered to reflect on what they had accomplished and sacrificed. Though victorious, they understood that the world would never truly be free from such threats. Forces beyond human comprehension would always exist, waiting patiently for their chance to emerge once more. And so, Samuel Harper and his companions vowed to remain vigilant, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in the Wild West, where legends walked among men and mysteries lurked in every shadow, the line between reality and fantasy was thinner than most cared to admit. Thus ended one chapter of their story, but many more awaited, hidden just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to seek them out. The victory over the corrupting force in the valley brought a temporary peace, but Samuel Harper and his companions knew well that such victories were fleeting. The Wild West was a land of endless mysteries, some beautiful, others terrifying, and all waiting to be uncovered by those who dared to tread where most feared to go. As the days turned into weeks, the group found themselves drawn back to the life they had known before their harrowing adventure. Jacob returned to his solitary prospecting. Maria resumed her healing work in the small towns scattered across the plains. Thomas wandered once more, seeking purpose in the vastness of the frontier, and Emily sought solace in the quiet beauty of nature. Yet, despite their return to familiar routines, each carried with them the weight of what they had witnessed, the knowledge that the world was far stranger and far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Samuel, however, could not shake the feeling that their battle was far from over. Thunder, too, seemed restless, his ears twitching at sounds only he could hear, his eyes scanning the horizon as if searching for something unseen. One evening, as Samuel sat on the porch of his ranch, watching the sun dip below the mountains, he felt it, a shift in the air, a disturbance that prickled at the back of his neck like an unspoken warning. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. The animals around the ranch grew uneasy, their usual patterns disrupted. Birds flew erratically, their calls sharp and panicked. Deer no longer grazed peacefully near the creek. Instead, they bolted to the underbrush, their hooves kicking up dust as they fled unseen dangers. Even Thunder, usually calm and steady, paced nervously, his muscles tense beneath his coat. Samuel's instinct screamed at him to investigate, to uncover the source of this new unease before it spiraled out of control. But this time, he would not act alone. He sent word to his companions, calling them back to the ranch with promises of another mystery, one that threatened not just their corner of the Wild West, but perhaps the entire region. When the group reconvened at Samuel's ranch, the atmosphere was tense, charged with anticipation and unresolved questions. Jacob arrived first, his rifle slung over his shoulder, his face etched with lines deeper than Samuel remembered. Maria followed shortly after, her satchel filled with herbs and potions, her eyes carrying a weariness that spoke of sleepless nights spent studying ancient texts. Thomas and Emily arrived together, their presence bringing a sense of unity that had been sorely lacking since their parting. "Something's happening," Samuel began, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. "The animals are acting strange. The air feels off. I think we're facing another threat, one that might be connected to what we dealt with before." Jacob grunted, leaning against the porch railing. "Figured as much. This land doesn't stay quiet for long. What do you propose we do?" "We need to find the source," Maria interjected, her hands moving deftly as she unpacked her supplies. "If the animals are reacting this way, there must be something nearby causing it. Perhaps another site of power, similar to the monolith." Emily nodded, her gaze distant, as if already seeing visions only she could perceive. "I feel it too. A presence, lurking just beyond our reach. It's different this time, though, darker or colder." Thomas crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. "Then we move quickly. Whatever it is, it won't wait for us to gather our courage." Thus, the group set out once more, guided by instinct and the subtle signs left behind by whatever force now threatened the land. Their journey took them through dense forests where sunlight barely penetrated the thick canopy, across rivers whose waters whispered secrets in languages long forgotten, and over rugged hills where the wind howled like a living thing. Their first clue came in the form of an abandoned cabin nestled deep, within a grove of ancient oaks. Its wooden walls were cracked and weathered, its windows shattered, yet inside lay remnants of a life abruptly ended. Books filled with cryptic symbols lined dusty shelves, their pages yellow with age. On the floor rested a map, its ink faded but still legible, marked with locations none of them recognized. "This wasn't just a home," Jacob muttered, examining the artifacts carefully. "This was a sanctuary. Someone here studied the same forces we've encountered." Maria picked up the map, her fingers tracing the markings curiously. "These places, they're connected. Each one seems to hold a piece of the puzzle. We need to follow this trail." Their path led them to a series of caves hidden within a mountain range known locally as the Devil's Backbone. The entrance was guarded by carvings so old they seemed to have been made by nature itself, their shapes resembling serpents coiled around the earth. Inside, the air grew colder, heavier, as if pressing down upon their shoulders. Stalactites hung like frozen daggers, their surfaces glistening with moisture that dripped steadily onto the ground below. Here, they discovered evidence of rituals performed long ago. Candles melted into pools of wax, ashes scattered across stone altars, and bones arranged in patterns that defied logic. At the heart of the cave system lay a chamber unlike any other, its walls covered in murals depicting scenes both wondrous and horrifying. In the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a crystal pulsing faintly with an inner light. "This is it," Emily breathed, stepping closer despite the unease radiating from the crystal. "This is the source of the disturbance. It's feeding off the energy of the land, growing stronger with every passing day." "But why?" Thomas asked, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. What does it want? Before anyone could answer, the crystal flared brightly, casting shadows that danced wildly across the chamber. A voice echoed to the cavern, deep and resonant, speaking in a language none of them understood. Yet its meaning was clear. It demanded recognition, acknowledgement of its existence. The confrontation that followed was unlike anything they had faced before. The crystal unleashed waves of energy, forcing the group to fight not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well. Jacob's bullets ricocheted harmlessly off invisible barriers, while Maria's chance struggled to pierce the entity's defenses. Thomas and Samuel engaged in a desperate duel with tendrils of light that materialized from the crystal, their blades clashing against an opponent neither solid nor incorporeal. In the end, it was Emily who provided the solution. Drawing upon the connection she had felt since the beginning, she reached out to the crystal, not with anger or fear, but with understanding. Her words, spoken softly yet with unwavering conviction, bridged the gap between worlds, allowing the entity to communicate its true purpose. "I am not evil," it explained, its voice softer now, tinged with sadness. "I am a guardian, tasked with protecting the balance of this land. But humans have disturbed my rest, awakened me prematurely. Now I must choose to continue my duty or fade into nothingness." Tears streamed down Emily's face as she realized the truth. "You don't have to fade. Let us help you restore the balance. Together, we can ensure this land remains safe." With great effort, the group worked alongside the entity, channeling their combined strength to repair the damage done. The crystal dimmed gradually, its light fading until it resembled nothing more than a simple rock. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as the entity fulfilled its final duty. As they emerged from the caves, the sun greeted them warmly, its rays banishing the lingering shadows of their ordeal. The group stood together, united not just by their shared experiences, but by the bonds forged in the face of unimaginable challenges. "Another chapter closed," Jacob said, breaking the silence. "But I reckon there'll be more stories to tell." Samuel smiled, placing a hand on Thunder's neck. "There always are, and we'll be ready, won't we?" They nodded in agreement, knowing full well that the Wild West held countless mysteries yet to be uncovered. For now, though, they allowed themselves a moment of peace, basking in the knowledge that they had once again succeeded where others might have failed. And so, their journey continued, their hearts and spirits strengthened by the trials they had overcome, their eyes forever open to the wonders and terrors hidden just beneath the surface of the untamed frontier. The sun dipped below the horizon once more, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain as Samuel and his companions made their way back to the ranch. The air carried a sense of accomplishment, yet also a lingering unease, a reminder that the Wild West was never truly at peace. Each step they took brought them closer to home, but farther from the simplicity they had once known. For in this land of untamed beauty and hidden dangers, every victory came with a price. As they approached the familiar site of Samuel's ranch, the group exchanged weary glances. Their faces, lined with exhaustion and determination, reflected the toll of their recent adventures. Thunder, ever vigilant, seemed to sense a shift in atmosphere, his ears twitching toward the distant hills where the wind whispered secrets only he could hear. Inside the cabin, the warmth of a crackling fire greeted them, its golden light casting dancing shadows on the walls. Samuel poured drinks for everyone, the clink of glasses echoing softly in the quiet night. They sat together, not speaking at first, letting the silence settle around them like an old friend. It was Maria who broke the stillness, her voice soft but steady. "We face so much," she began, cradling her cup in her hands. "Forces beyond our understanding, creatures born of nightmare. And yet we keep moving forward. Why is that?" Jacob leaned back in his chair, his weathered face illuminated by the flickering flames. "Because if we don't, who will? This land, it doesn't care about us. But we care about it, about each other. That's what keeps us going." Emily nodded, her gaze fixed on the fire as though seeing something none of them could. "And because there's always hope. Even when things seem darkest, there's a chance to make a difference." Thomas raised his glass, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "To hope, then, and to the next adventure, wherever it may lead." They clinked their glasses together, the sound ringing out like a promise. Outside, The stars shone brightly against a velvet black sky, their light piercing the darkness like beacons guiding lost souls home. But even as they celebrated their survival, a new challenge loomed on the horizon, one none of them could have foreseen. It started with the dreams. At first, they were subtle, barely noticeable, a fleeting image here, a whisper there. But soon, they grew stronger, more vivid, until they became impossible to ignore. Samuel dreamed a vast desert stretching endlessly beneath crimson skies, their sands shifting restlessly as though alive. Jacob saw visions of ancient cities buried deep within mountains, their towering spires gleaming with an unnatural brilliance. Maria heard voices calling to her in languages older than time, their words weaving tales of forgotten gods and sacred rites. Thomas relived battles fought long ago, his blade stained with blood that wasn't his own. And Emily saw nothing but darkness, a void so absolute it threatened to consume her very soul. At first, they kept these dreams to themselves, unsure whether sharing them would bring comfort or condemnation. But as the nights passed and the dreams persisted, they realized they could no longer remain silent. One evening, gathered around the same fire that had warmed them countless times before, they spoke of their experiences, their voices hesitant but resolute. "These aren't ordinary dreams," Maria said, her fingers tracing the edge of her cup. "They're warnings, messages from somewhere or someone beyond our understanding." "But what do they mean?" Thomas asked, his brow furrowed in thought. "Why are we being shown these things now?" Jacob shook his head, his expression grim. "I don't know, but I reckon it has something to do with what we've already faced. Maybe the entity in the caves wasn't the only thing awakened by our meddling." Samuel stared into the fire, the embers reflecting in his eyes. "Whatever it is, it's bigger than any one of us. If we're meant to understand these visions, then we need to follow them to see where they lead." And so, with renewed purpose, the group prepared for another journey, this one guided not by maps or trails, but by the enigmatic whispers of their dreams. Their path took them to places both familiar and strange. They revisited the Valley of the Monolith, now eerily silent, its surface smooth and unblemished as though untouched by time. They explored the caves of the Devil's Backbone, their echoes carrying memories of battles fought and won. Yet each location offered only fragments of the puzzle, pieces that refused to fit together until they reached a place none of them had anticipated. It was a canyon, carved deeply into the earth by rivers long since dried up. Its walls rose sharply on either side, their surfaces etched with carvings so intricate they seemed to tell stories spanning millennia. At its heart lay a pool of water, its surface perfectly still despite the wind whipping through the canyon. The water shimmered faintly, reflecting not the sky above, but images drawn from their dreams. The deserts, the cities, the voices, the battles, the darkness. "This is it," Emily whispered, stepping closer to the pool. "This is where everything connects." As they watched, the water rippled, forming a shape that hovered above its surface. It was neither human nor beast, but something in between, a figure cloaked in shadows, its form shifting constantly like smoke caught in a breeze. Its voice resonated through the canyon, filling their minds with knowledge both enlightening and terrifying. "You have been chosen," it intoned, its tone neither kind nor cruel. "Chosen to bear witness to truths hidden from all but a few. The world you know is but a fraction of what exists. Beyond your reality lie realms infinite in number, each governed by laws incomprehensible to mortal minds. You have glimpsed these realms through your dreams, seen their wonders and horrors. Now, you must decide, will you embrace this knowledge or reject it and return to ignorance?" The group exchanged stunned glances, the weight of the question pressing down upon them. To accept such knowledge meant altering their perceptions forever, opening doors best left closed. To reject it meant turning away from opportunities to grow, to learn, to become more than they ever imagined possible. After a moment of silence, Samuel stepped forward, his voice firm despite the tremor in his heart. "We accept. Whatever comes of it, we'll face it together." The figure inclined its head, a gesture that might have been a nod. "Then prepare yourselves, for what lies ahead will test not just your strength, but your very essence." With those words, the figure dissolved into mist, leaving behind a single object, a small, glowing orb that floated gently to the ground. As Samuel reached out to take it, the canyon around him began to change, its walls melting away like wax under heat, revealing a landscape unlike anything they had ever seen. The world they entered was both breathtaking and disorienting. Skies of multiple colors stretched endlessly above, their hues shifting unpredictably. Rivers flowed upward instead of downward, their waters sparkling with light. Trees grew upside down, their roots reaching skyward, while their branches dangled into the ground. Everywhere they looked, the laws of nature seemed inverted, defying logic at every turn. Here, they encountered beings unlike any they had met before, creatures composed entirely of light, others made of shadow, some existing as pure sound or scent. Each offered insights into the workings of this realm, their wisdom adding layers to the tapestry of knowledge the group carried within them. But not all encounters were friendly. In one particularly harrowing moment, they faced a creature born of chaos itself, its form constantly changing, its intentions unclear. The battle that followed tested every skill they possessed, pushing them to their limits and forcing them to rely on each other as never before. Through it all, they learned, they grew, they discovered parts of themselves they hadn't known existed, unlocking potential they hadn't realized they held. And as they ventured deeper into this strange new world, they began to understand the true meaning of their journey. Not just uncover mysteries, but to redefine themselves in the process. When at last they returned to Wild West, they found it unchanged yet somehow different. The same winds blew through the plains, the same stars shone in the night sky, the same challenges awaited them on every horizon. Yet within them burned a fire ignited by their experiences, a fire that fueled their determination to continue exploring, to continue growing, to continue living lives filled with purpose and wonder. And so, Samuel Harper and his companions rode forth once more, their hearts open to whatever the future held, their spirits strengthened by the knowledge that even in the wildest, most untamed corners of the world, there was always room for discovery and always room for hope.